and welcome to Yavapai Speaks. I'm Lyle Rapacki, your host, and I'm excited that you are plugging in to see this new show. It really is very overwhelming to be stopped at Walmart in aisle 12, I think it was, and somebody say, hey, you're on a new show at Prescott News. So thank you for watching. Thank you for helping us get going on this thing. My guest today is one probably almost all of you know. It's Greg Mengarelli. Mr. Mengarelli was the former mayor of Prescott. He was a camp director. Now that puts it down a little bit. He was the executive director. How'd I do? Is that better?
Very good.
The executive director of a Christian camp for 26 years. And he was also served on the school board. So he has quite a history up here. And I think it's 32 years. Is that right?
30 years.
So you're correcting me on my show?
Yes, I am.
Okay. 30 years. Everybody else does it.
We got to be precise.
Yeah, because somebody will write in and go, it was not 32, Dr. Lyle, it was 30. And we were here. Yeah, they'll do that. 30 years Prescott resident. And one of the things I just learned, and I don't even know how to have fun with it, because then his wife would get after me, and you know how it is, wives and moms, you don't mess with them, right? Every guy knows this.
That's right.
He has 9 children. Isn't that fantastic? And I do know, now go ahead and correct me because I don't want to mess up on this. I think you've adopted several.
That's right. We adopted 4.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask about that. And I only learned about this a week or so ago.
Right.
And I was so taken of your graciousness to do that. And so I am going to ask about that. Well, Greg Mengarelli is my guest, and thank you so much. He's running for county supervisor in District 1. How'd I do on that?
You did perfect.
Well, there's 4 or 5 districts. You can get them messed up. You know, he's running for supervisor in District 1, and I asked if he would take some time out and join us for a couple of reasons, all kidding aside now for 30 seconds. 30 years in Prescott, he has seen a lot of change. Y'all have heard me talk about, I've only been up here 5 years, but I already miss seeing people wave. I already miss seeing people let other people in or out of the parking lot. I already miss the doors being opened. And I know I'm old-fashioned, but so what? I missed that 5 years ago. It was only 5, Greg, that I still saw some of that. Mm-hmm. And then as I talked to longtime residents like yourself, you all would share with me stories of what it was really like 20, 25, 30 years ago up here. It was really a community. So that really touched me when I found out that Mr. Mengarelli had been here that long. And over coffee, we were discussing it, and I said, please, would you make some time and come on the show? I'd like to talk about Prescott, Yavapai County, and whatever else we're going to talk about today, but from 30 years ago and how you see the changes today. So thank you again for coming on and taking time out. He is running for office. For those of you who never run, you do 4 or 5 radio shows at the same time. You do three programs like this at the same time, and you got to go out and speak. All at the same time. And you think I'm making this up. I'm really not, am I?
No, you're not.
I'm stretching it a little bit, but really not that much, because you get all these people asking you, what are you doing at 2 o'clock?
Right.
Okay. So Greg, thank you for taking time out sincerely. All right, let me ask. I don't know where to start. First of all, 30 years. You've seen a lot of change in Prescott and Yavapai County. How about just recalling a few of the things that it was like 30 years ago, 25 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of people research, like, what's the best place to live, and they find Prescott. We didn't do that. We were hired to work at the Christian camp that you mentioned, and we came over Bullwhacker Hill and went, wow, this is great. we loved it from the very beginning, Lyle. And, you know, I think early on in those early years, you couldn't go anywhere in a store or whatnot, and people you would run into your friends. You'd run it, you know, and so that community was smaller, tight-knit, and so friendly, and it would take you twice as long to do anything because you'd have, you know, 3 or 4 people that you run into.
Yeah.
And so that was, you know, I kind of miss that, you know, those connections, those community connections, and just people helping people, you know.
Now, as part of your DNA, I'm not being funny, but you're running for county supervisor, and let's say you're successful. Is that part of your DNA go with you? That what have we lost here in Yavapai County, Prescott? As a supervisor, I know you can't go back 30 years. I'm not playing now, but as part of your DNA, we're losing this community, in my opinion.
Some of that, yeah, has eroded, unfortunately, and we haven't lost it, but it's different.
Okay.
Now, when you go to rural, and I know you've been in rural District 1 quite a bit, it's more like what Prescott was. When you go to Yarnell or Wilhoit or Congress, these small little towns, you're like, hey, this is what Prescott was, in terms of just being that tight-knit community. And I love being in rural, Yavapai County and just hanging out with those folks. They're so real and take care of each other.
So I can put you on record. You become supervisor tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. No, the election's not tomorrow, so please don't call me. Okay, people. But you become supervisor tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Part of your DNA will go with you as a supervisor, remembering the quaintness, the wonderfulness, the community of Yavapai County. Will you remember that as a supervisor?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I get more out of going into rural Yavapai from the folks out there than I would ever be able to give them. I just love being out there, and there's some needs out there, and we're going to listen to those folks and make sure that we address the needs that we can out there in rural Yavapai County. But, the district is comprised of Prescott, as you know, but then also, rural out to Kirkland, Skull Valley, Baghdad, Wilhoit, Congress, Lake Pleasant.
Yes.
It's a part of Lake Pleasant.
Yeah, there's about this much of Lake Pleasant.
So, we need to be everywhere and address all those needs.
Okay.
The city does a pretty good job here, but, if they're not in a municipality, then we need to really pay attention to see what they need.
9 children.
9 children.
Now, what caught me, seriously, we were having coffee, just talking about a number of things, and this just came up in the normal conversation, and I paused. I looked at you. 9 children? Like, did you count right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what really caught my attention, I'm setting you up for this, 9 children and 4 of them are adopted. You share that. That was very touching, what you shared with me. And I'm asking you to be a little transparent and vulnerable. Ladies and gentlemen, seriously, this is really a neat story.
Well, Lyle, first I'd say we have 8 on earth and 1 in heaven. So we lost Brooklyn when she was 21 back in 2020. She had epilepsy and drowned in a hot tub. And you and I talked about that, and we take great peace knowing that she didn't suffer and she's in heaven. We have 4 grandchildren too, by the way, which is...
Oh, you didn't mention that.
That's the
you
most...
You did not mention that. Okay.
That's the most important. 4 grandchildren and 1 on the way. So we hope that keeps going.
Okay.
But yeah, we have 4 kids that we adopted, and we did Big Brothers Big Sisters, and it's a great program. But it's such a small amount of time where you're with them 1 or 2 days a month or something. And we were like, this is important to mentor these kids, but we got to do more. And so that's when we were thinking, let's try foster care. And it went from foster care to adoption, and we have 2 sibling groups, and it's a lot of work. You never know day to day. But it's so worth it because you're just trying to give these kids an opportunity, a shot, And today I have one daughter who's deaf, and I talked to a local restaurant owner. And I said, I'm not looking for charity, but if you have a job that she could do, he hired her. She makes pasta. Oh. And I have a photo that I took of her with her first paycheck today. And I sent it to him, and I said, you made this possible. And wow, so gratifying. To see her.
That's community again.
It is. That is small town community. I knew I could go to him. He has a legitimate job for her, but would give her that opportunity and knew a specific job she could do. And I'm so grateful.
Ladies and gentlemen, Yavapai Speaks. I was asked to do this show because I sense that we're losing community. And that's why we opened it with this little bit of discussion and some fun. But I want to follow up, not so much today, there's some other things, but in the future, whether you're successful as a supervisor or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I am concerned that we are losing our community as a Yavapai County. That goes from Cottonwood to Sedona. to the little strip there in Lake Pleasant. You're absolutely correct. And everything else in between. So I don't want to see us lose our community. I'm not naive. I know we're growing. I know things are changing. But gee, do we have to change and not open doors? Do we have to change and not wave in cars and to people? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. And that's really neat that gentleman, that business owner, gave her a chance. Mm-hmm. Way cool. Now, you're running for county supervisor. Why?
Yeah.
What do you have to offer the citizens of Yavapai County?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's something that kind of starts within my heart because I love this county so much. I love the people, and I just wanted to continue to serve locally. And, Lyle, I'm worried about freedoms that I see around the country. We look at these places that are going woke and the liberal agenda and just how pervasive it is, and then what it does to cities. When you look at, Portland and on down the coast, it's just tragic. And so I don't want, and we're nowhere near that, and I never want to get there. So we have to protect, this is not just rhetoric here. We have to protect the freedoms that we have now. And it's extremely important to me that we keep Yavapai County free, and that we keep those values that we love so much here in Prescott and why we all moved here. So that's number one, is protect what we have and what we love. Beyond that, I really have a heart for people and want to serve people, and so I love fixing things and problem solving, and we can talk about my record in that regard when I was the mayor, but I see some things where there's gaps in basic services, particularly in rural Yavapai County. And again, these, whether it's fire, medical, health, basic stuff that needs to be addressed out there, and I want to help with that. So you can
talk to the people of rural Yavapai County and let them know right here, you hear them.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is not some political platform.
No, this is something that I'm passionate about. I served at United Christian Youth Camp for 26 years, and it really was service. I didn't get summers off, so I kind of like having my summers off now. But
no, you wouldn't.
It's just in my DNA that I love serving and helping others. I hope that's evident, even just with the story of my family. And I want to get out to rural and hear what's going on, figure out what needs they have, and I already have a good sense of it. But I want them to help be a part of the solution too. I can figure out quickly, Lyle, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Never. But I'm good at getting people around a table, figuring out what is that problem, and then let's all come together, come up with a solution, and then let's execute.
So as a supervisor, you'll follow through on that.
Absolutely.
As a supervisor, you will sit down with the citizens
Absolutely.
In your district, but heck, how about if they live in Cottonwood? They're a member of Yavapai County, and you're a Yavapai County supervisor.
That's right. And we want to respect those supervisors over those areas, of course.
I'm not into fratricidal conflicts or civil war.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not advocating that. But we want to take care of the citizens in Yavapai County and not become like Maricopa County.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. What would be one or two, and we'll have to do another show, and I will, but what would be one or two of the most major issues that you're seeing in your district or Yavapai County?
Yeah, I think where District 1 is located in relationship to the whole county, fire is a big deal. I mean, we're sitting right in the middle of fire season right now, and we're just hoping and praying that nothing ignites south and west of town, right?
Yeah.
And that's where District 1 is.
Yeah.
So I want to work with all those entities. Forest Service is a big one, but all of the governmental agencies that hold land, the private property owners, and we got to get resources out here to mitigate fire and to make sure that we get good mitigation to protect Prescott and all of us, honestly, in the whole county. Beyond that, I think the air tankers are something that people aren't talking about. It's kind of like we have a fire station up there at the airport, but there's no fire engines in it. And I want fire tank right now in this fire season. I want to see a couple tankers sitting there ready to go. And I know they can deploy pretty quick out of Phoenix. I get it. But I just want to make sure that we have all the proper resources. That's our number one natural disaster, in my view, that we got to make sure we're ready for. Kind of right on the heels of that, I've been talking to the sheriff, and I think you're going to bring him in here. I think that'd be good. Sheriff Rhodes. The sheriff's office is outside of our regional communication center, which is right over here across the street, PRCC. And we got to figure out how the sheriff can be a part of that. How do we get everybody on the same page and together? Again, that's a basic service. It's something that I believe the government should be taking care of. And in terms of response times and coordination, I just think it makes sense, Lyle, that we have that, communication piece together. So that's a couple things. You can talk about water. We don't have a lot of authority with water because that's governed by ADWR, as you know, in the county. I will tell folks that if you have a well, I'm going to protect your rights on that well. I don't want somebody trying to put a meter on it or tell you how much you can pump, or that's an inherent right, a private property right with that well, and I will not want to mess with it.
You are a defender of personal rights,
Absolutely.
Private property.
Absolutely.
And we have large here I'm telling you, you've been here 30 years, but I've learned that there's a lot of major ranches here.
That's right.
And I know this is 7th grade, 1,500 square, square, what am I talking about, miles, and larger ranches.
Right.
And the baton is trying to be passed by the owner to grandchildren, and they don't want it.
Right.
And so what's happening is we're seeing an advent of developers coming in here.
Right. So this is another point I want to make in terms of kind of a platform, Lyle. We've got these large landowners out in the county, and there's kind of this generational slip that you're talking about where the next generation is like, hey, we don't want the ranch,
right,
or we don't want the large land holding. So I've talked to some ranchers out near Skull Valley, and what I would love to try to figure out is how can we take those 2-acre minimum parcels, because they've got 2 acre over the top of these large ranches, which doesn't make sense to me, okay? So the suggestion would be, how do we get them to a place where we can incentivize it? This is voluntary. This is not the government saying you have to do something, but how could we incentivize them to move to a 36-acre minimum with 1 split? And that's what you see in Ruger Ranch. And I know you're familiar with Ruger Ranch. And I think that makes sense out there, and that fits in terms of the infrastructure available and the water available. And, we don't want to see that turn into development out there. So I'm on record right here saying 2 things. I would never vote for higher density zoning than what exists unless the people in that community wanted it, which they don't usually. But I would not vote for like the man camp where they wanted this real high density in Kirkland. I would not vote for higher density zoning that exists unless an overwhelming majority of folks in that community wanted it. Secondly, this whole agenda of turning zoning from 2 acre to 36 acre with 1 split, I just think makes a lot of sense. Now I don't want to do a taking. This is, again, I'm not telling people that the government's coming to change their zoning, but if we could work out a deal and it made sense for the landowner, I would love to try to figure that out and try to figure how to incentivize it. I don't know how to do that yet. And again, I'm respecting their existing private property rights. I don't want to take away their zoning that they have, but if it makes sense for everybody, let's do it.
Greg, is there any last comment, any last thought you'd like to share with our audience?
I just want to convey that I absolutely love Yavapai County. I raised my family here, ran a business here for 26 years. I'm fully invested in the community. And I feel like I'm the best person to be able to lead Yavapai County in the future from a supervisor position. So I would really appreciate your vote and your support. If you have any questions, please contact me through the website, mengarelli4az.com. And anything you want to ask, I'm happy to address any questions. Lyle, it's been a privilege to be here with you on Yavapai Speaks on one of your first podcasts. And so thank you so much for that. And thank you, everybody out there. I hope you have an enjoyable 4th of July and celebrate with your family. And remember, stay free and celebrate our independence.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Mr. Greg Mengarelli has been my guest, and I echo his sentiments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for caring. Thank you so much for already beginning to support this program. We're brand new. It's just starting up. You're going to see a lot of changes coming. Hopefully they're exciting changes. We're going to extend it to 2 days a week, maybe even 3. And I think you're going to enjoy not only guests like Mr. Mengarelli, but some others that are coming in, not only from Yavapai County, but from across Arizona and across the nation. That's a hint. That's a toying with you, but stay tuned. My guest has been Greg Mengarelli. Thank you again, Greg, for running. I'm Lyle Rapacki, and thanks for tuning in to Yavapai Speaks.